Hi, all. This is Rosie Snow from Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church. Today, I want to talk a bit about how we can look to philosophy and the Bible for guidance as to how to begin to heal the brokenness in our society and the broken way that we treat each other, that we relate to each other. And I'm going to start by talking about dystopias. So, we are all very familiar by now with dystopias, which have permeated our collective psyche, which we see all the time now in movies and TV and novels. But we don't spend a lot of time imagining utopias, perhaps because we're too cynical or because we're afraid others will call us naive and the fear of being sneered at is too great. A friend recently sent me a compilation of reflections and writings on utopias by a number of different writers and thinkers. And the whole thing was interesting, but there was one thing that really jumped out at me. And this was an idea that came from Fred Pollack. And Fred Pollack was a founder of future studies, the study of the future. And he was also a Jew in Europe during World War II who had to go into hiding. So he had a pretty good sense of how bad things could get in cultures and in societies. He wrote a book called The Image of the Future, which I plan to read. And his idea was that cultures only flourish when the members of that culture are able to have together shared positive images of the future. And when those positive images start to decay, the culture will also start to decay. And there are certain conditions that must exist in order for societies to be able to produce the positive images of the future needed to keep the culture healthy. There has to be a condition of what he called influence optimism. And optimism is the belief that the future is both open and influenceable. Open and influenceable. I can say pretty confidently that these conditions do not exist right now. People do not feel that the future is open and influenceable. They actually feel like the future is closed off and scary and predetermined and totally impervious to efforts to change it. And guess what? Our culture is really not healthy right now. And part of that is by design. In the same document that my friend shared with me, there's a quote by Junot Diaz that says, "There are trillions of dollars out there demotivating people from imagining that a better future is possible."
I wonder who benefits from making people feel like they can't influence the future.
But what if that weren't the case? For those of us who profess a Christian faith, it really shouldn't be the case. In the book of Acts, which chronicles the beginning of Christianity, basically, the book of Acts describes a community of people who are so filled with the Holy Spirit, they only have positive images of the future. In fact, the most positive images possible for the future, even though they are being persecuted at the same time. They share all that they own and give it to the poor. They heal people, they talk to people. They're filled with a generous and grateful spirit. And this is from Acts 2:46. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. These kinds of community behaviors are emblematic of people who are radically optimistic, even when there isn't any outward indication from the politics of the day that they should be. These are people who believe that the future is wide open for them and that their faith will not just influence, but transform that future. Can we do the same? We can, and we must. Our faith tells us the future is open, no matter how many trillions of dollars are spent to get us to believe otherwise. The Christian faith gives us positive images of the future, but we should also come up with some on our own. For instance, last fall we imagined together the positive image of a community garden. And now, see what we've done. We've also, as a community, imagined an alternative to our government's anti human and pro death immigration policies, which we're living out through our sanctuary ministry. This is a radical practice, but in a society that's sick over its own cynicism about the future, it's up to us to restore health, image by image.